Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So today we are putting technology in the deep fryer. We're looking at what happens when AI and robotics leave the factory and take over the restaurant kitchen.
All right.
We've compiled sources, including some key reporting from the Columbus Dispatch and a lot of industry analysis, and it shows that these sophisticated automation systems are being rolled out at a furious pace.
Just everywhere.
All across America's major quick service chains. So the central question we're wrestling with is pretty urgent. Are these machines genuinely solving the labor crisis, or are they just driving this massive and maybe unhealthy consolidation?
And that reality is, it's complex, which is why we structured this deep dive for you, the listener, to get that concise takeaway.
Right.
Our mission is to weigh the logistical and economic drivers, the promise of huge cost savings against the reality of chronic labor shortages, with the consumer reaction and, critically, the long-term changes this is forcing on the market.
Okay, let's unpack this then, because you mentioned consumer reaction, and that's a perfect place to start.
It is.
The sources were really clear that this rollout isn't, universally loved.
Not at all.
When chains introduce a robot or an AI ordering system, you see this significant guest backlash. People walk in and the experience just feels less personal, maybe even sterile.
They didn't come for a tech demo.
Exactly. They came for food, not to be served by a robot.
And that tension is absolutely key. It creates this dividing line. Consumers value hospitality. They value flexibility.
They value a human who can fix a problem right away.
Right. None of which are things robots are great at. Not yet, anyway. But the industry itself is facing these, existential threats that make that guest preference almost a secondary concern.
So what are those specific threats? What's the real driver here?
The immediate, overwhelming driver is the labor crisis, specifically in the quality service restaurant sector, the QSRs.
This isn't just a seasonal thing.
No, this is a chronic failure to staff these high-turnover, really repetitive roles. The data we reviewed shows that a staggering 30% of restaurants simply cannot find or retain kitchen staff.
30%, that's a massive figure.
It's huge. It means businesses are running at, 70% capacity, or worse, they're closing during peak hours because they just don't have enough people on the floor. So automation goes from being a luxury to a life raft.
That is just a staggering operational drag. So nearly 1 in 3 quick service spots is bleeding productivity. And when there's a vacuum that big,
Capital rushes in.
capital rushes in to fill it.
Precisely. And we saw huge signals of this investment surge. For instance, a company called Nori just raised $37 million.
And what do?
Well, their focus isn't just on one salad-making robot. They're using AI to manage all restaurant operations, everything from forecasting demand, scheduling, to minimizing waste and organizing inventory. They're selling predictive intelligence. And that level of investment, it just proves the financial world sees automated management as the critical next step.
And the financial payoff for adopting these systems, that was the real knockout punch in the sources. We were talking about chains seeing a sustained 15% to 20% reduction in their labor costs.
It is. It's hard to grasp the magnitude of that number.
I mean, let's pause on that.
Yeah, think about it. If you're running a mid-sized franchise with, say, 20 locations, your labor costs are probably around 30% of your total revenue. That could be $9 million a year.
Right.
A guaranteed 20% cut saves that one franchise $1.8 million a year. It just changes the entire balance sheet.
Suddenly that $100,000 price tag for a robot looks like a weekend lease, not a huge investment.
What's fascinating here is that the urgency of the labor crisis and the size of those savings, they just flatten any other argument.
Including what the customer might want initially.
Including initial consumer reluctance, yeah. When the CFO sees a clear path to saving that kind of money, the decision is almost made for them. The market pressure is just, it's overwhelming, full stop.
But is the return on investment quick enough? I mean, for a franchisee who might already be cash-strapped.
The sources suggest it's getting surprisingly quick, because labor costs hit you every single day. The moment you replace even one full-time employee with an automated process, the system starts paying for itself.
So we have the financial motivation down, efficiency, stability, huge cost savings. But what does this actually look like day to day?
Yeah, and the most disruptive tech is often the stuff you don't immediately see. We can sort of break it down into front of house and back of house.
Okay.
So for front of house, we're seeing widespread use of conversational AI, powered by stuff like ChatGPT for complex ordering.
Right, like the drive-through AI.
Exactly, the drive-through internal phone systems for reservations.
So instead of a human cashier struggling with extra sauce, no pickles, substitute fries for a salad.
The AI just handles that complex conversational flow instantly and with perfect consistency, which is crucial for cutting down on food waste from mistakes.
It streamlines the whole transaction.
It does. And then you have the back of house, which is where the really huge automation numbers are. The biggest system we saw mentioned was a platform called Deliverect AI.
Deliverect. That's probably a new name for most people.
It is, but for a restaurant operator, it's changing everything. Think of it like the central brain for all third-party delivery orders.
So DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, all the tablets.
All of them. Instead of staff manually typing every single order from 5 different tablets into their main kitchen system.
Which is just asking for mistakes and delays.
Precisely. Deliverect automates over 60% of that process. 60%. It eliminates double entry, it speeds things up, and it stops those situations where someone misses a DoorDash alert.
It's replacing logistical inefficiency with operational clarity.
Yes. And then, of course, you have the physical robots that get all the headlines, like Sweetgreen's salad-making line.
Or automated fryers,
Yeah.
things that are repetitive or dangerous.
Exactly. And when you put it all together, the predictions we saw from QSR Web suggested that 2026, less than 2 years from now, is going to be the year of the AI-driven restaurant.
So this is happening fast, but it brings us back to that central concern: what happens to the people,
Yeah.
the workers?
And that's where the sources offered this really crucial reframing.
Right.
The core thesis is that this technology is fundamentally not about replacing people, it's about replacing inefficiency. And that distinction is just, it's vital.
So where is the inefficiency specifically being targeted?
Well, it's really 2 categories. First, pure data entry tasks like we just discussed, transferring orders, updating inventory. And second, some of those mid-level managerial tasks like complex staff scheduling.
Where an AI is just demonstrably better and faster at optimizing.
Right. And then the high-value human roles, the things that can't be automated, become more focused.
So the AI handles the grunt work, freeing up staff to focus on customer service or special requests.
The things that actually define their brand. And this directly addresses that common counter-argument we always hear.
Robots can't replicate hospitality.
Exactly. And that statement is 100% true. You can't automate empathy. You can't automate complex problem solving.
But the sources suggest that by removing the tedium, you're also fixing a huge problem: staff burnout.
That's the key leverage point. Think about a talented kitchen manager spending 45 minutes every night just manually tallying wasted food or adjusting schedules.
It's boring, repetitive work.
It's the kind of work that makes good people leave the industry. If AI handles the boring stuff, then the human job becomes about management, guest interaction, the stuff they actually enjoy.
So automation becomes a tool for retention.
It makes the human job more engaging and sustainable.
It sounds like a powerful, positive cycle.
Yeah.
But only for the companies that can afford the ticket to ride.
And that brings us to the inevitable pivot, the cost.
Right.
Like all powerful tech, there's a massive financial barrier. The sources are very clear. A full deployment of robotics and AI can exceed $100,000 per location.
$100,000. For a huge national chain, that's just a capital expenditure they can absorb. But for the independent coffee shop, or the family-owned QSR with 2 locations,
It's often impossible. And that consolidation risk is the most provocative long-term implication we found.
because only the biggest chains can afford this tech early on, so they gain this immediate, insurmountable advantage.
It's the consolidation trap. They are literally buying their way out of the labor crisis. They now operate with 15 to 20% lower labor costs than their independent competitors.
Who are still struggling with staffing and turnover.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the smaller QSRs get squeezed from 2 sides. They can't afford the tech.
And they start losing their remaining staff to the big chains, who can now afford to pay a little more because their own costs have dropped.
It paints a pretty stark picture. A future where the big chains become these hyper-efficient machines, while the smaller, independent places that define local food culture, they just can't keep up.
So this deep dive has been incredibly illuminating. We started by asking if automation was a stunt or a solution. And the sources seem to say It's a necessary solution.
A necessity, yeah.
Yeah.
Solving a critical labor shortage by replacing inefficiency. But it comes at a cost, creating this steep financial barrier that turbocharges market consolidation.
And for you listening, whether you're a manager or an owner, the practical advice from the experts was crucial.
Right. You do not need to wait for the $100,000 robot. You can start making these high-impact moves now.
That means starting small with inventory and back office stuff. Systems that are priced on subscription, not huge capital outlays.
Yeah, adopting order management AI like DeliverAct or scheduling software like Toast or Homebase AI.
These are your 80-20 moves.
They are. They save you money instantly, they minimize waste, and crucially, they improve staff morale by eliminating that mind-numbing data entry work.
It gives you a fighting chance to stay competitive.
It does. It brings us back to that point of polarization, and this raises a really important question for all of us to consider.
Yep.
If automation solves the labor shortage, but only for the big chains, will the smaller, independent restaurants that define our local food culture soon be completely reliant on technology they can't afford? Or will they simply disappear?